I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be online dating, a woman's perspective. Well, obviously, I've got an email here from a woman, and she's going to go through some experiences that she has had with online dating. And what I think is really cool about her email is that you get to see what a woman goes through from her perspective and how things that the guys are doing that she's meeting online and going out with, and how it's affecting her emotions and level of attraction for them. Because you probably heard me say more than once that it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And so as we go through this, I'm going to point out some things here in her email. And I really appreciate the fact that she took the time to write this, because it'll really help give you a woman's perspective on what they're going through and what they're thinking about dating and sex and hooking up and when it's appropriate. And plus you can see what the guys are actually doing right and wrong that she's going out with. So I've got a quote, obviously, before we get into it, that I'd like to share with you. And it says, "Learn to trust your heart above everything else in life. When something does not feel good to you, it means that you should take a second look, continue your analysis, or that your assumptions may be off. Until you get clarity about what feels right, it usually means that something is off in your assumptions or your plan of action. When you choose the path that is in alignment with your heart and your intuition, this will feel right, and your fear of moving forward will disappear. Things will feel effortless, and you will be able to move forward taking action with certainty instead of fear. Learn to respond to life's circumstances only after careful introspection, analysis, planning, and consideration, instead of reacting upon fear-based impulses and emotions. If it don't feel right, something is still not right. Keep searching and keep looking until it does." Well, learning to follow and trust your heart about things, whether it's a job that you are applying for or interviewing for, or a business that you're thinking about starting, or somebody that you're dating and you're trying to get some clarity about whether or not that's the right person for you, or if you want to continue seeing them. And sometimes when you don't feel clarity, or something just kind of doesn't really feel like completely, like all of the, the brakes are off, so to speak. In other words, there's still something holding you back. Something still doesn't feel right about the situation. That means that something isn't right. And the best course of action is to sit back, chill out, and think about and analyze the situation until you get to the point where you get some clarity. And so let's just go ahead and jump right into her email. And so she says, "Hey, Corey, I started dating two guys. The first guy is totally my type, like a shirtless, brawny man. We went on a few casual dates, but nothing ever happened. I recently contacted him again, and with all the dirty texting, I'm really excited to see him." So you see how it's interesting. They went out a couple of times, and then probably more than likely, he stopped calling. And so what happens? A week or 2, 3 weeks, whatever it happened to be, the time frame that went by, she picks up the phone and calls him, and then they start going out. And what's nice about this for the guy's perspective is now he's got a woman initiating contact. And it's a lot more fun to make a date with a girl who's reaching out to you as opposed to a girl you're trying to get a hold of, you're waiting for her to return your messages, or she's not really enthusiastic or open to making plans with you. And so, I mean, it's a completely different experience when the woman starts pursuing, when she starts chasing. And keep in mind, it's a scientific fact that women are attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And so for the woman who wrote me this email, what can be helpful as I go through this email to you is to understand how the actions that these guys are taking or not taking in some cases, like in this particular case, this guy just like all of a sudden stopped moving forward, and then what happened? You picked up the phone and reached out to him. And when you did that, obviously it's because your level of attraction and interest had gone up, obviously, since he stopped moving forward. It's a very powerful thing. It's like human beings, men and women both, we tend to want what we can't have. If something's difficult or not easy or not real available, we'll tend to like it more as opposed to something that's just handed to us or given to us. She says, he tends to want me more when he has competition. So I give him competition whether they exist or not. So in other words, what she is saying is that when he thinks she's got lots of other options with other guys, she's more interested. She's more, or I should say he's more interested. And so it's the flip side. So she's using the same kinds of things that I talk about all the time to get a guy to start pursuing. And what's cool about that is that, because every men and women alike, we're all working on something within ourselves. We all have something that we can work on that we need to become better at. And when you understand the psychology of what men and women both emotionally respond to in relationships, you can catch yourself before you get down the road where you're just completely gonzo over a person, and then you realize they're not really a good match for you. And at that point, then it hurts like hell to get out of the relationship because you're already emotionally attached to them at that point. And it basically allows you to remain objective and not just get all kind of googly-eyed like a 15, 16-year-old that's in love with for the first time. Because, I mean, let's face it, getting your heart broken really sucks. And this way, if you can understand what's going on and what's causing you to feel certain things with the people that you're dating, and you understand what's motivating you and causing you to feel that way, you can kind of step outside of that and not let it affect you emotionally, so therefore you can make good objective type of decisions. She says, the second guy, I can tell he really likes me. And this is really fascinating what she says. I talk about this all the time, and now you're hearing it from a woman's perspective. She says, the second guy, I can tell he likes me. He's not my type, listen to what she says, but he's starting to grow on me. Something to think about there. It's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And this is what is so powerful about simply setting one date a week and going out with a woman. So if you go out on a date, even if she's not really that excited to go out with you in the beginning, as the weeks go by, you literally become more attractive to her. Just like she said, he's starting to grow on me. Well, that tells me he's doing more things right than wrong, and therefore that's why she's finding him more attractive the longer she goes out with him. And in a lot of cases where you're just an average guy in a really beautiful woman's eyes versus that same woman is dating another guy who's really super handsome in her eyes, in other words, she's like 80% interest in him, and she's maybe 50-55 in you. But if that guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, even though he's good looking and it was easier for him to get things rolling, because he doesn't know what he's doing in the dating process, he's doing and saying things that are turning her off. And if you're mysterious and if you're not rushing into things like the average guy is doing, you start out at a lower level of interest to begin with than the other guy does. But because you handle yourself appropriately in the dating side of things, her interest in you starts to grow. You become more handsome as the dude who is physically more handsome than you actually ends up becoming less handsome to the girl as time goes by. And it's so fascinating, and that's why it's so hard for men and women to understand this stuff, because it's so counterintuitive. This is so opposite of what we see in movies and TV and what just society puts out there in the world as to how men and women are in the dating and relationship world. She says, he's my newer addition. They are so different, and I'm totally confused because I think I could like them both equally. So in other words, it could go either way at this point. And it doesn't matter where her initial interest is. Whoever, and this is what's cool about if you've ever watched any of those dating shows on TV. I've watched a few of those sometimes, and I go in like early on in the season and watch one fucking episode and listen to what the guys are saying and doing as they're going out on the dates with the girl or the bachelor or bachelorette, those kinds of things. And so you can tell which guys really get it. And so you can tune in a month later, or when there's only 2 or 3 guys left, and you say, oh, there's my guy. Because you could see it. you could just see the progression of interest growing in that one guy who consistently does everything right, and her interest dropping in guys who were 100 times better looking than the dude who ultimately ends up with her. Just because he knows how to show up, he knows how to act, he has control of his own emotions. He doesn't let anything that happens diminish him, let alone in competition with any other dudes. The other guys are all, you'll notice those guys never talk about the other guys, and they have like a take it or leave it attitude. They're kind of like, hey, hopefully it'll work out, it'll be great. Either way, they're not attached to an outcome or result one way or another. They just show up, and over time, the other guys, even who are a lot better looking, talk themselves right out of being the one that the woman ultimately selects at the end of the show. And that's what I love about this stuff, is that you can people watch. It's like you can learn this stuff and just go chill out at a mall or a bar or a nightclub in a weekend and just sit at a table and just watch people interact. Is so fucking fascinating, because you can go there with your buddies that are learning this stuff and you can point it out. People watching is just fascinating. And the first few years that I really got into this stuff, I used to go out with my buddies and I used to just sit there and look at that. You see that? You see that? See, look at the body, look at the body language, look who's touching to who, look who's walking, who's in front. It's just amazing. He says, they are so different and I'm really confused because I think I could like both of them equally, though I haven't slept with either one. What is a decent amount of time to be dating them both so I can figure out which one I want? What I would tell you, that if you've been out 3 or 4 times with either one of these guys, and neither one of them have really made a move physically, and that kind of sounds like that's what that tells me. And so these two particular guys, what you got to understand with the one guy that just basically stopped moving forward and you reached out to him and called him, is that to me would be a sign of low interest. But notice how not hearing from that particular guy caused you to want to reach out to him. And now let me finish this email first. So she says, was a decent amount of time to be dating them both so I can figure out which one I want. Plus, I really want to sleep with the first one. The one who stopped calling her. Isn't that interesting? You want the guy who basically blew you off. That's something that's in. But the other guy, he's still in the running. He's making the effort. And he's starting to grow on you. So things really important in relationships is you got to make sure you're with somebody who's making a mutual effort. And one thing I would point out is that particular guy obviously stopped moving forward for whatever reason. So the one thing that I would caution you is you don't want to end up going down the road dating this particular dude when he's really not that into you. And so she says she wants to sleep with the first one. It's like, so you already made up your mind that that's the guy that you want to hook up with. But keep in mind, if you go ahead and you hook up with this dude and you sleep with him when he'd kind of blown you off and he really wasn't that into you, that tells me that that guy doesn't have a huge abundance of women that he can hook up with. And since you're making it easy for him, he's willing to take advantage of that. But in the long run, you got to pay attention to the fact that he's not as engaged as, say, maybe the second guy is. And so reverse psychology should tell you that you should do that with him. You should use some of these things that I'm teaching and make sure that you're not pursuing the guy too much that you're really into, because it's all, for men and women both. When we don't really care about the other person, we're just kind of like, we can take it or leave it either way. We pretty much do everything right, but the more you're into somebody, the harder it gets to do the right thing with them consistently. So those are some things that I would point out that should be important for you going forward. So if you have a situation that you'd like to get help with, or you have a challenge that you need help with, go to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a paid phone session. And I will talk to you soon.